the late Reverend Dr. R. Bennie Mitchell Jr., and he's here today to talk to us about the film, how he came about to produce this project, a bit about his father's background and history, and whatever else he wants to talk to us about right here on Live in the DTV. How are you, Mr. Mitchell?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about this film and who was Reverend Dr. Benny, your dad, Reverend Dr. Mitchell.
Well, Reverend Dr. Bennie R. Mitchell Jr. was a pastor in Savannah, Georgia, who was his roots. He was born and reared in Edgefield, South Carolina. Went to um, Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina, and then for his undergrad did Benedict College and then did Morehouse School of Religion in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, and in the early 70s, and he moved to Savannah with him and his wife and his young child, my older sister, Benita, in 1974. So he went to Kind of Simple Baptist Church, who he felt that he was led there to Savannah, Georgia, because they were lacking spirit per se when it comes to human rights.
Mhm.
So he was led there, and right away he went to work with his projects.
His projects. And without giving away the film and the whole life, because we want people to go on Amazon, it's on Amazon.
It is on Amazon and Tubi TV, which
On,
is a free station.
okay, on Amazon and Tubi TV. Without giving away the whole film, can you give us just some highlights of some of his projects? So some of the works he did there in Savannah and maybe even nationally and globally.
Yeah, so one of his projects was starting a community center from an old building that was deemed um, the first Black commercial building in Savannah, Georgia, by the Georgia Historical Society. He resurrected that building in the name of the church he pastored at. The name of the church is Connors Temple Baptist Church. He resurrected that building. It was symbolic to the neighborhood for so many decades, and he made it a family resource center where people could get information about their health, mental health, and
Mhm.
also they tried some physical activities, and also kept ties with the community outreach, because where the church sat in the Savannah, Georgia, it was surrounded by two projects, housing projects. So he wanted them and everybody else in that area, especially the church, uh, to have a place to come to learn different things about themselves.
Right.
And they offered various programs, elderly, children, work programs, different government things. And well, anyway, that's one of his works. And he also had a national project, which was starting a Martin Luther King Observance Day, started in Savannah, Georgia, before it became a national holiday in
Ah,
1986. So it was a holiday in Savannah, Georgia before anywhere else in the United States.
wow, that's amazing. You said that was in 1986. He started the Martin Luther
Well,
King Observance Day.
that one 1986 is when it became a national holiday, but it was celebrated in Savannah, Georgia since the late 70s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And so I'm sure from that they took that blueprint of what he was doing in the 70s, and now we have Martin Luther King, the Observance Day that we celebrate every February.
Correct. Every January
I'm
16th, right?
sorry, January.
Yeah.
February Black History Month. So but
Yeah,
yes.
and you know what? That was purposely done
Mhm.
on his behalf, because he would actually start those festivities around that date. So Martin Luther King would set it. The date would set the tone for February going into it, because there were a month and a half long of festivities of learning about Black history and how to uplift the spirits in Savannah, Georgia. So it was a huge thing back in the 80s, huge thing in the 80s. and 90s.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It sounds terrific and sounds like of course it's something that's still going on because we still practice Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth. We still observe that in January. We still of course give excuse me. We of course observe Black History Month and all of the history that Black people have given to, especially here in America. What are some of the now, what way made you put it in your spirit to say, you know what, this story has to be told. I have to make this film to make sure that my father's legacy goes on.
I'm not gonna tell you everything
Okay.
because I'll be here all day. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just sum it up to I was born to make this film. Nobody could have done this but me.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. And if I sit down and really talk to you about how this really came out, play by play, you would understand and agree. So I'm gonna give you the very short version of that. So my mom bought my father a video camera when I was 12. I
Mm-hmm.
let it sit around for 3 days and then I claimed it as mine. And I didn't even know I was actually making little short films in the camera, self editing, until I got to college. And I went to Savannah College of Art and Design and have a degree in film, video, sound design. And um, he was always a project of mine. My father also was a singer. So we made our first record together when I was 19. And it was called, or it is called, There's a Bright Side. And we made that first record. And then the next year, I shot it on 16 millimeter as, half of a music video. And there were other things that we did that I just continued to collect. And I had no idea that I was actually headed on this road. And it just made a lot of sense one day, um, January 2007. I remember the day, uh, January 17, 2007 is when I wrote everything down and I called a family meeting and said that we're going to make a film. And started pulling stuff together and started digitizing. So some of the stuff, the VHS tapes that my dad would have recorded of his speeches or the different MLK celebrations that would go on, news stories, things that happened because Dick Gregory had come to the church as well. Jesse Jackson was often stop by, Reverend James Orange, Joseph Larry. All of these people that I'm calling out are building blocks of the movement um, when Dr. King was in there alive and after Dr. King. And pretty much they're dwindling out right now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they're falling off because of their age. Um, so it took me 2.5 years just to digitize a lot of the footage that you will see in the film as B-roll. And
Right.
it took me, maybe like a course of 3 years to record 74 interviews. 90% of those interviews were shot in Savannah, but I had Cynthia McKinney, Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney. She did her interview in Atlanta, and I got Reverend Jesse Jackson's interview in Los Angeles. So it's I've been piecing it, and it just made sense for me to finish it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so it just made sense for me to finish it, and it became a mission for me
Mm-hmm.
to finish it. So there you have it. It's in my blood to finish it, and I did, of course. So it was something that was um, definitely for me to make.
Yes.
So yeah, that's it in a very short nutshell.
Okay, I like it. I like it a lot. What in your own words in this experience, since you've now produced this film, sounds like like it came out around 2012, 2013.
Well,
Final product.
actually, My trailer, the first trailer that you saw was cut in 2013 as a fundraising piece.
Okay.
That's a whole nother show in itself, because let me tell you, we do not like to support each other, okay?
Wow. Yeah.
Uh, the film actually finished. I finished cutting the film 2008, in the middle of 2018.
Hmm.
And I had my first showing when it was shown anywhere else. Before it was shown anywhere else, it was shown in Savannah, Georgia, January 2019, right around the MLK festivities.
That brings it full circle. That's wonderful that it brings
Yeah,
it full circle like that. That's beautiful when it happens.
yeah.
Okay, so what, and I'm almost scared to ask because the last thing you said, what has been the response so far of the film, people who watch it and now get to hear the story of your father, Mr. Mitchell Jr., the Reverend Dr. Mitchell Jr.? What's the kind of the
Um,
response there?
well, the response is always great. Is when you're going through
Mm-hmm.
that, people have like their doubts, or let's say the non-support.
Right,
Okay. So the response has been pretty good overall. People had no idea that things were going on that went on. The different challenges that he faced to do some of the things that he wanted to do. Um, so the response is great, and especially when you're talking about people who didn't know him feel inspired after watching the film.
right,
They say, "Great, there's some that bit of history I had no idea that really existed," and that's another reason why I made the film, is because there's so many stories out there with our people who have done, created, and achieved amazing things.
absolutely.
I had this much information, my background, my education, it just made sense for me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it also weighed on my heart to where I felt as if I did not do this, it would haunt me for the rest of my life. So the response has been great. It's been cool. I
Okay.
just want more eyes to get on it. Um, um, it was something else I was about to say before my phone distracted me. The response has been pretty good. Like I said before, it's when you're going through it, and nobody really can knows what you go through when you're doing a project of this size. Like,
Right.
people just, you know, the people that you thought would support you really didn't support you, and the
Mm.
people that you had no idea that would support you supported you.
Yes. And that's really interesting that you don't know where your community necessarily will come from. You don't know where that support will come from. But once you start doing it, like they say, an object in motion stays in motion. So you're gonna get the force behind you to keep going. As
Yeah.
long, especially like you said, you felt that that was just like your calling, like it would have haunted you if you didn't. So it was just something in you that said, no, this has to be done, and it has to be done by me because this is my father, and I'm the only one that's gonna tell it right.
Well, not only that, I had all of the stuff. I had shot. This is something that has been going on since I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shot in the intro of the film where in 1989, my dad went to Atlanta, Georgia, the capital of Georgia, to meet Coretta Scott King because they were going to make the holiday official, right?
Right.
And there was a shot, and it's an angle short. I was shorter then, so it's
Mm-hmm.
an angle shot, and it was my dad in the frame with Coretta Scott King around some news stuff. So I've been shooting since I was 12, and
Yeah.
it just made sense, man. It just made sense, and that was one thing that I knew that it was going to take, which was sacrifice. A lot of sacrifice was given to make this happen. So I just know that I would have totally regretted it for the rest of my life if I did not attempt to do this and succeed.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so where do we, well, we know where to find the film. We know or we know a bit of your story, your journey that you've been sharing with us, and then we're going to watch this movie and find out who your father, Reverend Mitchell, really was. When your own words or your thoughts, where do we go from here? Now, what's like next after we see the film? We're inspired. Do we tell more stories? What do you think should be next?
Now, for an individual or myself?
Both.
All right. So for myself, what's next is well, artistically, when we're talking about the mediums of film, video, sound design, I would like to tell my father's story or the documentary story in a narrative format.
Mhm.
That would be interesting and fun.
Yeah.
And I would like to um, spanned it out where each decade he did his thing in Savannah, Georgia at that pinnacle time of his could be spanned out like each decade could be a season,
Hmm.
right? So
Uh,
it's yeah, so
as a
it would
series. Interesting.
yes. And it's amazing like the stories um like if you see the documentary, you would think that Savannah would be more progressive in the 70s and 80s, but it wasn't.
Mm,
It wasn't. And that whole town still has um, a spirit of um a place where an antebellum spirit where the South is the South,
mm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, so what's next for me? I'm just still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
But once you see the film and you feel somewhat inspired, if you feel inspired, that's up to you to find out what your calling is. I can't tell you what it is, but hopefully it will spark something in you to make you feel like you have something that you are here to do for. Um, so just like what you're doing right now, you're interviewing people, you're doing your thing, and in the process of doing this, you're figuring your stuff out as well.
Yeah.
So it's being about proactive. It's about being proactive in something. You may not be doing this right here next year, but at the same time, this is helping you get to your destination. So being proactive and listening to your heart um, is exactly what that product of the film is.
Absolutely. I agree. Just listen to yourself. You're got the guy that's just in you to say, hey, I have to be proactive and make something, do something, create something, invent something. You said something though in some of the clips I was watching for the film. It was a news clip, I believe, and you said it's now. I think you said something about it's now about getting behind the right leadership as a whole. And then you kind of just touch on it. I don't know if the news shortened it or maybe that's all you said, but can you kind of go in a little bit more on that? Because I think you touched something there that maybe a lot of more people need to hear.
So, like I was saying about all of the stories that we have, the history and the stories that aren't told,
Mm-hmm.
and the stories that are told, whether you like it or not, we can all, as a nation of people, whatever we decide that to be, as a nation of people, we can learn from these stories.
Okay.
And I'll say this. Um, I don't want to go too far off of what you said. You said nations. So we don't have to be all Muslims, all Christians, all anything. But the one thing that we do need to have is an agreement on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can master that, I think that, we would find out what the next step is as a nation of people living in this country. So again, if you watch the movie at the very beginning, at the opening statement, and I'm gonna refer a lot to the movie because I listened to a lot of what my father had to say throughout his 40 years of speeches and the different things that I thought that needed to go in there. And one thing that he talks about is organization.
Mm-hmm.
In the opening credits, he talks about organization and how um, you can't do anything, no matter what it is, without organization first. So if we're thinking about moving, we need to find out what we're gonna do first.
Right.
And if we don't do that, then you'll have exactly what you have now, is everybody going everywhere instead of being in line with one another. So That's what I mean by that.
I- Great answer. I don't think I could have heard it or said it better myself. I like, especially that last part, going in the same direction. Where now we're just so scattered, and
So scattered.
and a lot of it is not just scattered, but the division. And so it's hard, but the again, once we figure out what the layout is of, okay, these are the these are the rules, whatever it is of the Black community that we're all going to follow, it'll be so much more precise, and we'll be getting so much more done in a short times, because we hear again in your father's story, but we hear stories of Tulsa and other Black communities that was able to almost rise, but then when they start getting there, something happens. Sometimes an outside force, sometimes an inside force, and
Right,
it
right.
dissipated.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a very good point. Sometimes it's an outside force,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, all more than often, it's an inside force.
Yeah.
So we just have to be on one accord, and we can learn a lot from our Italian, Asian, Hispanic brothers. They do a
Absolutely.
lot of things right.
Yeah.
But the one thing the foundation of all of that is being able to communicate, and also being on at least that one accord that we were
Mhm.
talking about, that foundation of being open
Right.
to organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, Mr. Mitchell, we don't want to hold you too long. Of course, not getting rid of you, because I could, just like you, seems like you could talk about this all day. I could too, but I know you got other projects going on, other things going on. Um, and I'm sure our listeners got things to do as well. But before you go, two final questions. One, where can we find you if someone wants to book you for an interview, talk to you some more about this project after we watch the movie, get some more insight, maybe help you build that series that you were talking about? Where can we find and contact you?
Well, you can always Google It Is Well. The name of the film is It Is Well. Bennie Mitchell on Google. Different things will pop up. Social media will pop up. My Instagram, my personal Instagram is Bennie, Bennier, as in Rob, M as in my last name. So that's Bennie RM. And then the film's Instagram is um, BRM_JR for Junior. So that's the film's Instagram. Also on Facebook, Bennie Mitchell. And for the film is Reverend Dr. Bennie R. Mitchell Jr.
Yes, sir. All right. And oh man, I kind of forgot my last question. Oh, just tell us once more, where can we find the film and enjoy it?
Okay, very good. The film is on Amazon Video Prime Video, Amazon Prime Video. All you have to do is just search It Is Well, and it'll pop up. And also, it's on Tubi TV. That's TUBI, capital T, capital V. It's a free app. It's free movies, but you may have to watch a couple of ads to enjoy the film. That's all.
Okay. And so can you, if you be so kind to remind people who you are once again and what the channel is if they're
My name is Bennie R. Mitchell III, director producer of the film It Is Well, and I am live in the D TV.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.